Hello. Hello. Oh, all right. Start at 6:15. All right. All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our work session for Tuesday, May 19th, 2026. First item on our work session agenda is the Excel Energy Update. We'll turn it over to staff.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council, good evening. Joining us tonight, we have Hans Rodvik from Excel Energy. And so Hans and I have been talking about getting him in front of the City Council to just provide some updates for Excel Energy being our local electric provider here in Evans. So being able to go through, refamiliarize the City Council with the happenings of Excel Energy, maybe what the future looks like and how that benefits Evans. So without taking any more of your time, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Hans and let him take it from here.
Awesome. Thanks, Cody, and thanks, Mayor Clark, for the time here tonight. Like Cody said, I'm the local area manager for Excel, so kind of your point person for all things related to Excel Energy and any interfaces and questions you guys have about things happening here in Evans. So we can run through, have some brief slides just to try to give you guys a quick high-level overview of Excel, who we are for folks who might not know, and then we can really just make this a conversation. And I want to take the time to get to know you guys, so feel free to ask any questions along the way. So, like I said, globally, Excel is an 8-state company. Our corporate headquarters is in Minneapolis, and we have a large headquarters and base here in Colorado. Our office is down in Denver, and then we've got service centers all around the state. So I'm based in Greeley, just a couple minutes north. And my territory goes basically from Estes Park out to Sterling. And my primary role is to be that interface between our local communities and specifically with our local elected officials. So we do dual fuel, meaning we're an electric and natural gas utility. So as is kind of the hot topic in the utility business, there's a lot of focus and emphasis on carbon reductions and emissions reductions specifically. So we've been making some really steady progress since our 2005 levels. And then as a company, we're about 52% carbon free, which includes a significant portion of nuclear up in our upper Midwest states. So we have 4 main pillars of what we want to do. We obviously want to deliver excellent service. We want to make our interactions easy with our customers. That's why my role really exists, is to make sure that our elected officials and our city staff know how to interface with Excel and can get you guys pointed in the right direction. Obviously, we want to make sure that we guide folks to whatever the right choice is for their energy needs, and then we're really about leading the energy transition. So long term, I can't even think about 2050 right now. I've got 3 kids at home, so day by day is how I run my calendar. But major long-term goals. There's many utilities across the country with similar goals. So you'll see this, from some of our peers around the country. But safe, clean, reliable, and affordable are the primary targets. So this kind of helps visualize it a little bit more. Our emissions reductions, we're obviously working with a lot of communities and customers around the state to do the EV first. So one of the cool things, I think, at least for our company, is that we're trying to lead by example. So we're converting a lot of our small cars and trucks here locally to EVs. So you'll see a lot of our meter readers are now driving electric vehicles. Our linemen, when they have to just get from the office to a job site, they can go out and drive one of our electric trucks instead of having to drive the big boom trucks all over the place. So turning more to a local perspective here in Colorado, who are we and what do we do here? Well, Excel has been in the state serving customers roughly since the 1860s. We started off as the guys in Denver who would light the kerosene lanterns back when that was the rage. And today we're the state's biggest utility, covering pretty much every corner from the west to the south to the north and to the east. We're the biggest utility, which comes with a lot of responsibilities and sometimes a lot of flack. But we do our best every day, right? Because we're human and we're striving to provide something that I think is really essential, which is energy. And it's the same thing as water. When you turn on a light switch, you expect it to be there. And you turn on the faucet, you expect it to be there. So We've got a pretty unique balance of customers, just a little bit more electric than natural gas. And in the state, our carbon-free production is a little behind our overall. I think that's going to be changing here as we get closer to 2030. In Colorado, we have natural gas. Our coal assets are slowly being phased out. Many of those are getting converted to natural gas. A lot of wind and a lot of solar. And we even had some very unique hydro resources around the state. One of the things that you don't see here on this mix is nuclear. Sometimes that can be a politically charged subject, but the company is pretty favorable for it, and we would like to see that happen here in the state. As a Well County guy, I think it'd be great to have one up here. Comes with a lot of jobs, and a lot of tax benefits, and then obviously you get that steady carbon-free electricity that's just on all the time. So again, just another way to visualize things of how this is going to work. For folks who aren't familiar with utilities and how does power end up at the end of the light, basically you have to have some form of power generated, whether it's burning coal or spinning a turbine on a windmill in eastern Colorado. In order to get that to us as residents and customers, you have to have big transmission lines. So those real tall 200 or 300 foot, a couple 100-foot poles carry the power from those power sources to a substation. And a substation, there's actually one, just down to the west of us off of 34 when you're coming into the city. That's a very small substation. Power comes in there, and then it's regulated down, and then it's put on the overhead power lines that you see around the area, and then that comes to your homes and businesses. So that's very high level. How does energy work? And on the natural gas side of the business, it's the same thing. Gas is transported in large pipelines and then shipped, and the pressure is regulated down until it gets to the homes. So a couple years ago, we had our clean energy plan that was proposed to help kind of push forward what our resources were going to look like until about 2030. And so large amounts of wind, solar and storage, and then natural gas here, which is actually the primary, all of that is in Well County. Maybe a small amount outside, but we did 2 new turbines down at our Fort St. Vrain facility in Platteville. If you guys have ever seen that. And then we're working on another project in Fort Lupton. So one thing that I know is, the topic around affordability, we kind of like to highlight this of where we are nationally and then where we are compared against some of our other providers here in the state. So on average, our residential electric bills are 37% below the national average. So if you look around in different states from the East Coast to the West Coast, I was born and raised in Alaska. I can tell you that the electric prices here and my residential rate is substantially lower than up there. And so this is just kind of helps contextualize, we know that rates are going up. We know that those rate pressures are real and they exist. But our commitment as a company is to make sure that our rates don't go up any more than the normal rate of inflation, and that customers, we call it a share of wallet. So, your overall annual income and what you spend on energy, our commitment is to be at that 1% and no more than, I think, 1.25% or 1.5% overall, which is a really good target nationally. So we do that, obviously, a lot of unique ways. We try to manage a really lean business, and then we try to take advantage of really good low-cost energy that doesn't have any fuel sources like our wind. And there's the tax credits for wind and solar going away at the federal level, so we were trying to capture those before they are completely off the books. And we pass those savings, since there's no fuel cost, we pass those on directly to customers, those savings. So this is kind of the trajectory of wind here in the state. Pretty big ramp up over the last 25 years. So turning more to what are we doing? Where's the money going that we have planned for? At a high level, we're proposing around $20 billion worth of investment in the state through the next 5 years. And that goes down from the power generation all the way down to your just general overhead power lines to make sure that the system is safe, reliable, and then can grow in the future growth. I think we all know that Weld County is the fastest growing county in the state, and so we're going to have to make corresponding investments to keep up with all that. It's a 5-year investment plan, and this is the breakdown of it. So you'll see generation, the renewables, but the biggest component of it is that the distribution level. So just the nuts and bolts of electricity, building substations, taking the power lines out of the substation to where the new subdivisions, new industrial users are coming, and then everything that comes with that. So between the distribution system and building all that transmission to account for the new growth, those are the two biggest components of those buckets. This is our president of our Excel Colorado, Robert. He's very excited about what we have going on here, and he came over from PG&E in California, so he brought some very good experience and lessons learned when it comes to the wildfire front. So talking about the transmission, here in Weld County and as we go east, we actually are the start of our Power Pathways transmission line, which is about a 500-mile loop that is going to allow for a lot of renewables to come in on the system, and will basically expand our capacity to bring in enough power for many millions of customers. So we start at Fort St. Vrain down by Platteville, and then we cross Highway 85, so just south of us actually, and then kick east out to our Pawnee area or our in Brush. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but this is our long-term vision for the electrification of vehicles. I'm gonna kick actually out because I do want to spend a little time talking about who we are just more locally and how we are integrated in the community here. Like I was saying to Member Delaney, I live in Eaton and work here out of our Greeley office, and we really try to spend a lot of time getting out in the community, engaging with folks, and making sure that people know who we are. Excel is viewed a lot of different ways by a lot of different people, but I think one of the most unique things about us is that we're the state's biggest property taxpayer. So what that means for small communities around the state is, we're their main source of funding for their fire departments, for their school districts, for their parks and libraries and things of that nature. I don't know, that's an obligation, right, that we are supposed to do and pay our taxes for being a big, large industrial user. But I just think that sometimes gets lost in the shuffle when you're talking about big companies, and we always get named in the news about certain things. So, and we're really proud to give back to the community. Roughly each year we bring $4.5 to $5 million back in direct community investments. I play a really small part in that with my little limited budget to do community engagement up here in the area, but really like to engage with our towns and our cities and help out with town events, and whether it's a summer festival or a parade of lights in the wintertime, help sponsor those out and make sure that you guys are feeling the love from us as well. So we've got about 4,000 employees here in the state, a lot of lifelong Coloradans, and really proud guys that are out there working on our lines every day to keep power on for us. So that's a quick and dirty of Excel and who we are, what we do. But I just want to open it up to any questions you guys have, and we can talk about energy and power or anything that's on your mind.
Well, great, thank you, I appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments, use your request to speak.
To do that, FYI.
Okay,
I'll be the last one.
Okay.
Ever.
that's fine. So just a couple questions for you. How is the utility infrastructure set for power? There's been a lot of talk, especially at the national level, and even I've heard at the state level, that our power grids are not going to be sustainable to hold the amount of demand that is on it with electricity, especially with all the new electric vehicles and everything going electric. How are you guys doing to mitigate those issues? And are we able to continue to handle the load that's being placed on it?
That's a great question, Mr. Mayor. So I would say XL is trying to lead that charge right now. One of the big plans that we have is called our distribution system plan, and it's a specific investment over the next 5 years to do exactly that. It's to meet the current loads, but then also to set us up for the next 25 years. And we've got that plan is going to involve almost 30 new substations across the state, 100 plus feeder projects, which are the main backbones that come out of the substations, and many other countless projects. Up in our area specifically, we're contemplating either 5 new or rebuilds of substations just in our Greeley service area. So that all benefits the region, and so that's probably our key example of what we're doing at the local level. And then you got to have the distribution, but you also have to have the new generation, right? Whether it's data centers or oil and gas, electrifying, everything that's happening around us here in Walt County, Chevron and Oxy, all of their new drilling operations are on the grid. And then all of the existing infrastructure in the region is also coming onto the grid because of state legislation and regulation changes. So we're keeping up with that, and I think it's a challenge, and we're trying to meet it head on.
And another question I have for you is, with all the high winds that we occasionally get, and of course, the increase of the fire danger and everything like that, is there a push to maybe put a lot of the electrical utilities underground to help mitigate a lot of that? Because I know you go to some states and they're mostly all underground. I mean, Colorado, I think Utah, and a couple other big above ground, power lines. Is there a push to maybe go that direction, or?
There definitely is. We, as part of our wildfire mitigation plan, I didn't touch on it too much specific because Evans is a tier 1 wildfire community for us, so it's the lowest risk zone. But that doesn't mean that things can't happen, right? We can't get an extreme storm that would knock out power. As part of our plan that we're executing on right now, we've committed to 50 miles of targeted undergrounding. Really in our highest risk areas, so think your mountains, your terrains, the areas over by the foothills and things like that. Not so much in the urban core, the substations and the areas where Evans gets most of its power. It's going to be pretty well protected from those proactive shutoffs. So we're working on those 50 miles right now of targeted undergrounding. But undergrounding everything kind of comes with some dual risks, where if you do have a feed that goes out that's underground, and those wires and everything do deteriorate over time, you might have a critical feed that cuts across the development or cuts across the parking lot or cuts across something like that involves a lot of disturbance to go in and replace it. So it's a trade-off. And obviously the cost difference between undergrounding versus keeping things overhead is pretty high.
Okay.
It's anywhere between 3 to 6 times the amount to rebuild underground versus overhead. But we're committed to it. I expect that push we'll be filing another wildfire mitigation plan. Let's see here, probably later next year, and then that'll carry us from 27 through 29. I would expect that it will have at least another 50 miles of targeted undergrounding, if not more, in that plan.
All right, I don't see anybody else requesting this. Oh,
I'm on.
that's weird because I'm the only one that shows up. Okay,
You're not showing up in mine.
that's weird. Okay, go ahead.
I'll go after you.
Yeah, so I guess my question is, what is the capacity that you currently are able to provide to the city of Evans in terms of kilowatt hours?
I don't have that off the top of my head, but we can annually produce you guys a community energy report to see what the actual usage was for your community, broken down on a residential and commercial level.
Well, because I guess the reason for the question is we're putting up a lot of development. And I know you say you have this plan, but I really haven't seen anything happening with XL other than building out the new developments. But in terms of major distribution lines, I haven't really seen anything happening.
Yep.
And that worries me because I don't want to get to a situation where, we've got developers building and then all of a sudden we're having power issues.
Tapped out. Yeah. No, it's a great question. It's a great point. So I would say kind of two things. When we get new applications for developments, we then build out the system to correspond and meet the needs, right? So we'll backtrack that and see, okay, does this feeder coming out of this substation have enough capacity on it? And if not, then we'll go and build a new feeder out of that substation. The distribution system plan and the way that we're executing on that, it's still in the regulatory process. Everything kind of moves slow in the utility space because we are fully regulated. So we have to get approvals on all of these major plans by the Colorado Public Utilities Commission. That said, there are multiple substations in this area that are targeted for upgrades or full rebuilds. And so I think once that plan is executed, it's going to be a major push. We've already started hiring a lot of the folks internally to start staffing that up, whether it's project managers or the designers or the engineers to figure this all out. So I think we're there. And I will say, as part of our coordination efforts with the city, I sit down with Cody and his team at least once a year, if not more. We're talking about quarterly now to keep up with everything, right? Because both you and Greeley and Johnstown and some of the other cities in the area are exploding. And we want to make sure we're staying on top of that. And the sooner we know that, hey, we're courting this new development of 1,000 homes, or we're courting this new industrial user, or shoot, maybe the city wants to do a new water treatment plant or something like that. Anytime there are those big loads, if we have those conversations 2 or 3 years in advance, it makes our lives a lot better for everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Did anybody else request to speak? Because ours keeps dropping off, coming back up, and then a move to vote, and then a second. Did you select to speak? Okay, Councilmember Johnson. Go ahead.
So I wanted to go back to the wildfire topic. So Weld County, as you may know, I think Jeff Collette's he used to be on RAC, but we're in the non-attainment area. So of course with wildfires, that's a huge issue and component. My worry is when I heard you say that cost is a driver for putting, having the underground.
Everything underground.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so with that said, that also kind of goes into my other question that was mentioned about capacity as well, because it sounds like you're building as you go based off of need versus kind of being proactive. And as you stated, there are data centers that potentially are going to start popping up in the area, which are going to add to the growing need. And that's just one thing that will take an astronomical amount of electricity. So now based off what you're mentioning, what is your plan? Your plan to, in the next 5 years, because there's costs involved with it, there's capacity, there's ensuring that you have your distributions, your substations, and what did you call it? Those little feed things?
They're called feeders.
Feeders?
Yeah.
So the feeders, how quickly can you put those online, which clearly there's a cost, there's manpower, and all of that, you tie into it. So it's just interesting to hear that the proactive nature of what's occurring and how fast it's happening, it's not there yet.
So utilities are very unique. The way that we work is we have our customers, our ratepayers, and the fundamental structure of the way that we're set up as a regulated utility is that growth does pay its own way. And so that can be a challenge, right, when you're seeing an exponential amount of growth, and then you layer just from a regular residential commercial level, and then you layer on something like a data center, which is essentially needing the same amount of power as a large power plant that a power plant produces. I'll get to the data center stuff in a minute. If the way that we're able now to start doing these proactive distribution system investments is that we had some state legislation changed for us to go out and start making these investments and recoup those costs on a real-time basis. There's a reason why we don't go out and build a new substation with a bunch of power lines associated with it until it's needed, is that we would all be paying for that as just the existing ratepayers today. And so that would be unfavorable and actually drive rates up more. So we build to correspond with the growth that's on our system and the actual applications and new customers that we get. On the data center side of things, we have filed we're calling it a large load tariff. Not a tariff like the national level conversation, but a tariff's like a rule structure for utilities. And we filed that with the Public Utilities Commission. It's kind of becoming, a standard practice in the industry where we are protecting existing ratepayers. The big loads will pay for all of the new infrastructure costs. They'll pay for their substation, their power lines, and the generation to serve them. And so the point of that is to protect ratepayers, but to help bring on these new loads in a way that, is beneficial for us and helps drive economic development, right? Lots of new jobs, big tax base, and then once they're there, they have high paying, numbers of jobs, not as obviously many as construction jobs, but that's what we're trying to do. And we filed that with the Utilities Commission. We kind of have a model for what we're doing with data centers based on what we were able to work with Google up in Minnesota. So we landed a very large deal with them that took about 2 years to put together, where they're paying for everything: the generation, the substations, the power lines. All of their infrastructure is borne on their costs, borne by them, and not your residential neighbor down the street.
Then one last thing, I know you were going to net zero. I don't know if you know, we had the first house in the area in Colorado, a net zero house here with Habitat for Humanity.
Oh, yeah.
FYI, you guys were a part of that project.
Yeah.
Well, Excel was, I should say. One last thing, I know it's net zero at zero net. What about net positive? Have you all looked into that and how that will factor into potential competition for others to start to sprout and start doing other things where they can silo individual households and provide energy that way?
No, I haven't. On the Habitat for Humanity thing, I'm actually super involved with them. I help sit on the board, their advisory board, and love what they're doing over there at Hope Springs, and try to get out there at least every 6 months or something and help on the houses. So Sherry and the team at Habitat are awesome. But I'm not familiar with the net positive side of things, so maybe we can follow up afterwards and talk more.
Awesome, thank you.
All right. Well, I've not seen anybody else that's any questions or comments. So thank you very much for the update. We really appreciate it. It's great information. Good to know.
Yep. I left all my cards there, so my phone number and email are on there. If you guys ever get questions from residents or just are curious or want to come out and look at things and learn things, we can arrange a tour or something. We can hop in the truck with one of our troublemen and drive around and see what they do on a daily basis. So more than happy to get you guys out and about, and appreciate your time here this evening.
Thank you. Appreciate your time as well. Thank you. All right. We'll take a quick